First thing which you need to do is to find out, which is measure. Without measuring what is in the air, whether you need to do something or what, it's just guessing. It's really pure guessing.
Yeah.
So the first thing is measure. Interestingly enough, we have standards for outdoor air quality. We have monitoring stations. Every jurisdiction, every state runs a network of outdoor monitoring stations where outdoor air quality is monitored. But there's no monitoring whatsoever indoors.
Really?
There's absolutely no monitoring of indoor air quality. First thing is you must monitor. The problem, however, is that it must be done differently than it is done outdoors, because you cannot roll in an air monitoring station into every room. You must rely on something much smaller but reliable. We are now at the state that we can measure using low-cost sensors. So this is a CO2 meter. And this is a whole instrument, so it's not a sensor inside, but it has a display, and it also communicates via Bluetooth with my mobile phone.
Welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Facilities, the podcast where we talk about the insights, innovations, and impact of the FM industry. My name's Aaron.
And my name's Nick, and today we had a conversation with Lidia Morawska, who's a professor based out of QUT, and who's an expert in a number of things, including air quality.
Yeah, and it was really interesting to not only find out and talk about her impact on the world's response to COVID and how she's technically, I think, responsible for saving hundreds of thousands, if not millions of lives.
Absolutely.
But then also the effect of air quality and the way we react to that in the built environment.
Yeah, and we spoke about the research that she's done and how that's going to inform how we manage air quality inside of buildings and outside in the future, how we can monitor it, what that means, and what we should expect to see over the next 5-10 years.
Really good episode. Let's jump into it.
Looking for the buyout then, just be open to change.
Just so good to spread the wings. I actually had to learn to do it because the question
My brother had mushrooms growing in his car.
Fantastic spreadsheet is like gold.
Water starts pouring on me.
It's such a rewarding career.
Drag them down.
We love you all of our customers.
Welcome to the podcast, Lidia. Thank you so much for coming in. I'm super excited to have you here. I feel like a little bit, I've heard so much about you. And, so it's finally good to put a face to the name and have you in the studio. I think you've actually been mentioned 2 or 3 times on the podcast as well. So thank you.
Very nice to be here.
So you are an expert in all things air quality, indoor air quality.
Outdoor as well.
And outdoor. Oh, there we go. I like that.
You cannot consider indoor without understanding outdoor.
Oh, tell me more about that.
Well, if there's a bushfire, all the stuff from outdoor comes indoors and you have to control it. So you have to understand where the source is, or cars on the road.
Yeah.
Emissions from the cars also come indoors. So you need to understand how to control indoor in order to do it properly.
That is fascinating. I've already learned something new. There you go. One of the big things that I've heard about you is the role you played when COVID-19 was becoming, we were learning about it and shifting the way we responded to the outbreaks around the world. You're sort of, you challenged the way the world saw and was responding to COVID in that we were all being told, hey, wash your hands, use hand sanitizer, touching surfaces will transmit it. And you said, no. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, this started a little bit before.
Yes, I can imagine.
Pandemic. Before the International Laboratory for Air Quality and Health, which I established at QUT, Queensland University of Technology, was mainly focused on, always has been focused on particles, but specifically ultrafine particles. That was my initial interest in indoor air. So for the first few years, we've investigated this. And those particles come from any sort of combustion, like traffic combustion, any type of combustion. But then came SARS-1, that was 2003. And by that stage, we were about 10 years old. By we, I mean the laboratory. And I was considered an aerosol expert from my initial background of nuclear physicist. The WHO was organizing a team of aerosol experts to uncover the mystery of what happened in Hong Kong, in the complex of buildings Amoy Gardens during that epidemic, when one person infected 300 people in a complex of 20-something high-rising apartment buildings. There was a team of epidemiologists which tried to explain this, and they couldn't. So then they started asking aerosol experts.
Yes.
This mission didn't happen. Well, I was petrified about going to Hong Kong at that time. Didn't happen because by that stage there was no evidence on the ground. But I started preparing for this and reading more about particles from human respiratory activities. Those particles are in general bigger than the ultrafine particles we investigated, but particle is a particle. I'm a physicist, so it's just a slightly different mechanism.
Yes.
And to my surprise, I found just 3 papers published over the span of 60 years about the physics of particles from human respiratory activity.
Just 3?
Just 3. So, of course, there were some epidemiological papers, but just 3 about the physics. Well, the physics is where it all starts. So I thought, wow, this is so interesting and so important. So the next step was we applied for grants from the Australian Research Council, ARC, got the grant, and started investigation. So we built a special system for this, where human head was and people were, speaking, singing, and so on. And we investigated the size of the particles, what it depends on. Then we expanded the team to include also respiratory physicians to understand all of this. So we had a very good understanding what's coming from human respiratory system and how those viruses would spread.
Yeah.
Before the pandemic, I must say that I was kind of losing hope that we will ever convince anybody of the importance of infection prevention in buildings because, well, indoor air, don't see it, why would you worry about this? Why would you listen about this? Why would you found other grants? So it was just basically hopeless. And then came the pandemic. So seeing tweets from the Director General that the virus is not in the air, false, not in the air, false. And then I thought something must be done about this because this level of misinformation is not just an academic discussion, it's not just frustration, something must be done about it.
Yeah.
And then when I decided to establish that group, which is called Group of 36, and this happened in 3 days, to challenge the WHO.
Yeah.
So 3 months of work, and eventually they accepted that it's airborne.
And that shifted everything in terms of how we responded. And if you hadn't done that, it probably would have been much more severe, much more catastrophic, hey?
That's right. It would certainly take longer because, of course, I'm not the only scientist who knew that the virus is in the air. But to take it as an action and challenge authorities, a global authority, this was an effort. So it would probably have taken, quite some time and maybe most of the pandemic before it somehow would have come to the surface.
And for our audience who are mostly facility managers and asset managers and they're managing commercial buildings where people are coming in and out, their lives were drastically changed and their jobs were drastically changed in that time to be quite different. And I think your findings and the work that you've done and the shifts in the way we responded probably made their lives a little bit easier in a way because it was no longer about making sure every surface was wiped down, the chair. It was now about, okay, well, how do we control?
That's right.
And so there was the social distancing and the bank branches and stores had the dots spacing us
Right, yeah.
from each other.
That's right.
Yeah. So thank you. So tell us what got you interested in indoor air quality to begin with.
Well, there's no kind of, in my way of looking, there's no difference between indoor, outdoor.
Oh yeah, sorry, air quality.
Air,
Yes.
That's right. So one step or several steps before my interest when I was still a child was to become a nuclear physicist. So that's what I achieved. I got a degree, my first degree is nuclear.
You did your childhood dream.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Oh, and most people don't. So that's incredible.
It was nuclear physics.
Yeah.
But after my undergraduate degree, I started developing an interest in something still related to radioactivity, but a bit different, environmental radioactivity. So isotopes and radioactivity in the environment. And my PhD was on radon and radon progeny. Now, radon is a radioactive gas present basically, well, everywhere, sometimes in small, sometimes larger quantities, and it emanates from the ground from radium, where again, it's in some quantities everywhere, in some places in high concentrations. So the biggest problem is in buildings, because if it accumulates here, it's no dispersion, then there's a problem, radiative exposure. So that was going slowly to the air, because this was extremely complex, studying this radon progeny and this particularly size distribution of radon progeny, because it's not just that it is in the air, but is it attached to something? Because its fate depends whether it's attached or unattached to airborne particles. And there were no instrumentations then, when I was doing my PhD in Poland, available to study directly the size distribution. So that was my PhD, and then I had a position, postdoc position at the University of Toronto. And there I was lucky to have an access to an instrument, one of the few at the time, which measures size distribution of particles in the air, not radioactive, just particles in the air.
Yeah.
So I could study both. I could have the radon, I could have the particles and study the interaction and quantify this. But at that stage, I started developing that idea that thought that the science of radon is in a way exhausted, in that sense that we understood enough to know that it's a problem and we need to control it.
Yes.
We cannot control emissions from the ground, but we can control it in the buildings. So we can prevent that it doesn't penetrate from the bottom levels of the buildings, and it's not in building materials, for example. So control. I thought we could study forever what happens in between the interactions, but that's really not the point. We need to control it. So with this kind of thinking, I was looking, probably not really consciously, for something new. And then on one day, and I remember that moment, it was just, I took the outlet from that probe, from the instrument, and instead it connected me to the chamber in which I was doing this experiment with radon progeny. I put it outside the window, and that was a window at a busy Toronto street, plenty of cars. And then I looked at the readings, wow, concentrations was out of this world, comparable to the concentrations which I had in my experimental chamber when I artificially generated aerosol.
And what does that mean?
Well, that was my question. What does this mean? What does it mean? What is it?
Yeah.
So I started searching through literature, and I couldn't find anything, because there were only few instruments like this, and they were all used, from what I knew, for laboratory studies, not on what's on the street.
Wow.
But I had, of course, that idea that it must have to do something with the cars, because by that stage, of course, it was very well-established understanding that there's pollution coming from the cars. So I thought it must be coming from the cars. And then I thought, wow, there's basically no knowledge on this, nothing published, and it's so scientifically fascinating, and it's so important if that's what it is, because these smallest particles go deep into the human lung. So I thought, well, that's my next step in my research career. And soon after I got my position here at the Queensland University of Technology. So coming here, I had that idea that that's what I'm going to do. And so the university wanted me to take over the radiation lab. But I was lucky enough that someone who was running it decided to stay for 2 years longer before retiring. And this gave me time to find money for instrumentation. Because I could be dreaming doing these things, but without instrumentation, nothing could. And these instruments are very rare and still are very expensive. So those 2 years gave me enough time to get grants to buy our first, it's called scanning mobility particle sizer, and start work on these particles in the air. And then the next was particles. You cannot study just particles because particles, they are not by themselves. They are gaseous emissions from the cars or from anything. So it just expanded. And then what is the purpose of this? To control it, to protect people, so it's exposure. So it was the picture was getting bigger and bigger, and our area of research. And then came SARS-1 and this added particles from human respiratory activities. And here we are.
Here we are. And buildings weren't, like building managers, facility managers, they weren't really focused on indoor air quality prior to COVID. It wasn't a huge thing.
No, not at all. Not at all. Well, of course, it's indoor environment which is considered, and a good part of this is comfort. If you are cold or you are hot, if the humidity is too high, you are not comfortable. So the big focus has been on comfort, but also on energy conservation. Because this understanding that buildings consume over 30% of energy humans consume. So conserving energy became very important. And until this movement started, buildings were very leaky. So there were huge losses of energy. So this was, of course, a right decision. Let's don't waste energy. And as a result, buildings became very tight. So good for saving energy, but not good for ventilation. So very low ventilation often, and accumulation of stuff emitted indoors.
Yeah. Ben, who's our producer, he'll be fangirling right now over in the corner of this episode, because he will walk into a room and say, "Oh, the indoor air quality in here's bad." The air quality is really bad, like you can smell it almost. The response was, let's get air filters and put them, those little Samsung air filters were everywhere in office buildings post-COVID. I know we have them in every room in our office spaces. Tell us, in terms of the lack of ventilation and the now all these buildings, they don't leak anymore. So what are measures that facility managers can take to improve the air quality in their buildings and their facilities?
Well, the first thing is to find out, do you really need to improve it, or maybe it's already good? After all, buildings, perhaps a building like this, many buildings, or like some buildings at our universities, are modern buildings. So they already have ventilation system with filtration and so on. So it's not automatically you assume that there's indoor air pollution and you have immediately start doing something.
Yes.
The first thing which you need to do is to find out, which is measure. Without measuring what is in the air, whether you need to do something or what, it's just guessing. It's really pure guessing.
Yeah.
So the first thing is measurement. Interestingly enough, we have standards for outdoor air quality. We have monitoring stations. Every jurisdiction, every state runs a network of outdoor monitoring stations where outdoor air quality is monitored. But there's no monitoring whatsoever indoors.
Really?
There's absolutely no monitoring of indoor air quality indoors. I'm not talking about temperature or humidity, because this is monitored, but I don't put it now in the class of air quality. It's comfort. So there's absolutely no monitoring of indoor air quality. So without monitoring, deciding what actions to take, whether indeed buy that filter, maybe you don't need it, because if already there's good ventilation with filtration, you don't need it. The first thing is you must monitor. The problem, however, is that it must be done differently than it is done outdoors, because you cannot roll in an air monitoring station into every room. That's absolutely not possible. It's huge, expensive, noisy, and so on. You must rely on something much smaller, but reliable. And we are lucky enough that 10, 15 years ago, whenever these technologies started developing, which are the technologies of low-cost sensors. We are now at the state that we can measure using low-cost sensors. In my little backpack there is one of them for CO2.
Okay.
We can have a look at this and see actually what is the concentration
Yes.
here in this room. So
Bring the backpack, Ben. We're going to do it.
Bring it in.
So these are low cost, you say?
that's
and
right, yeah.
so they could have them installed in rooms around their
that's right.
facilities? I'm sure the facilities probably already do. I think we had...
We go into some that will have them.
we'll
and
have
pop
them,
out.
yeah.
Do you carry this with you everywhere?
I carry everywhere, but this is now I'm carrying something else here.
And the Nespresso pods. That's
recycling.
So the
espresso.
recycling, yes.
There's only one place in Brisbane recycling this, and it is on the way here.
Great.
So that's my part of my.
I love that.
All right. So this is a CO2 meter.
Okay.
And as is, it's already higher than we recommend.
Like in here.
Yeah, we recommend in spaces 800 parts per million.
And we're at 982. What's going to happen?
That's so we'll see. Well, it was in the backpack, so we'll see whether it's lower or higher.
Yeah.
But as you can see, how small it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
How small it is, and this is a whole instrument. So it's not a sensor inside, but it has a display, and it also communicates via Bluetooth with my mobile phone.
Yeah.
So I think that's more or less the concentration here. So the question is what to monitor in indoor spaces such that it is possible I'm saying from the regulatory perspective, because you can, as a researcher, we can monitor hundreds, tens of pollutants here, but of course that's not the purpose of this. For regulatory purpose, whatever we monitor must be reliable, interpretable, and not costly that it's not possible to scale it up. So based on, and that's another line of our research for quite some time, on these low-cost sensors and understanding how they operate, what they do, we've seen sensors for particulate matter PM2.5 are the most reliable. Sensors for carbon monoxide are very reliable, and sensors for CO2.
We're down to 844.
Well, that's.
We're getting better.
It's possible that there is often some spatial variation. In this. So, but also it's all very possible. No, you were saying very close to it, because if we are too close, because this.
If we breathe.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, if we are breathing on this, that would.
Yeah.
Yeah. So these three types of sensors are ready for the purpose of regulatory monitoring.
Okay.
It doesn't monitor everything, of course, but it does a lot.
Yeah.
First of all, this one is it is a pollutant, but even at this concentration, even higher concentration, it is not a health problem as such. If anything, it is cognition problem. If there's too much of it, then our cognition, our thinking, learning is affected. How much? There's no agreement between experts, because it's very difficult to study something like this, but it's not a major problem. The most important it is that it is a proxy for ventilation and a proxy for infection transmission.
Yeah.
Because if it accumulates, means that it's not removed from here, which means ventilation is not good. And when infection transmission, we inhale pathogens together with this. So if someone is infected, which means that together with CO2 potentially the pathogen. So there are lots of where there were lots of discussions, more or less on this. Well, it's a proxy. Proxy. There's no proxy which is perfect. Of course, it's not perfect. We ideally would like to see every virus protein here, but it's science fiction, and that's not possible. So, and this is possible like this.
Yes.
So even if it's not perfect, but it's very good and good enough.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's the purpose of CO2 monitoring. PM2.5, which is particles from the health point of view, it is the most important pollutant. Regardless of the sources, just the particles, there are WHO health guidelines on this. They can come from indoor sources. Well, if there's cooking here, they would come from cooking. If there's carpet is dirty or whatever is on that floor and we are jumping, dancing here, so it would be here. But outdoors come in clean environments like here with very good vehicle fleet, where there's very little in car exhaust. They come from bushfires, controlled burning, and sometimes here when there's a fire, you wouldn't see the horizon here. And this sometimes goes on, and we know how much Australia, in particular East Coast, but not only, have been affected recently by fires. So this is particles. The complexity with particles is such that while CO2, if it's here, it's from us, take it out. If PM2.5 is high, is it from the sources here, or it came from outside?
Yes.
And it very much depends on the environment. If you are in a school, for example, where kids go in and out and they bring dust on their feet, then there are lots of studies showing very high concentrations there. So then you have to control this, but it's coming from outside. You have to prevent it from coming in, either filtration or recirculation or whatever it is. So you really, so in this case, it's not enough to have one sensor PM2.5 here. You must have a sensor outdoor and a smart system comparing what's going on and telling the building management system what to do.
What to do, yeah.
Guys, we've just gone to 789. I just would like to point that out. We're safe.
I feel like it's in a bad position for us.
I've got ADHD. It's very distracting.
It's showing.
So back to
so that's the reason for PM2.5. Now CO, carbon monoxide, it comes basically from one source. Well, from any practical reason, from one source, which is combustion. So what we say, and that all that information was published in that science paper mandating indoor air quality for public buildings, that it is recommended that it is measured, CO is measured in spaces where there's combustion. So like here, there's, there potentially could be combustion there, I can see.
the cooktop,
But that's right, But if there's no combustion, there is no need for having CO sensor. So it's either or both combustion indoors or outdoor concentration exceeding our national standard.
Yes.
Which in Brisbane is basically never the case. We never exceed CO standards. So we don't really need to measure CO in most buildings. CO sensor is a bit more expensive than the other two, but it's still a sensor.
How does the rest of the nation in Australia compare to Brisbane when it comes to CO?
Similar. There are variations, but it's not that well. Australian cities, big cities, have one of the cleanest air in the world. So.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Very lucky. You referenced the science paper earlier. I think we spoke about that off air before we jumped on. Do you want to share a little bit more about what that was, what's that informing, and then what action people can take from that?
Well, once we achieved the success in the acceptance of airborne transmission, and by we I mean now that the group we called ourselves the group of 36. There were 36 of us, which fought that initial battle. Then the question was what next, and everybody was asking what next. And that what next is that we really need proper indoor air quality standards, which are missing. So the question was how to do it. Let's start working on the standard. So that's what we did. That the group slightly grew because then required some additional expertise in policy in particular. So by that stage, the group I think was 44, and we call it 36 plus because it's not close, so not too changing. So we spent a lot of time working on this, what we say, a blueprint for standard. And a lot of time because it was a very interdisciplinary activity. We had experts from basically every area of science, technology, and policy. And it is a complex problem, very complex problem. So to reach a consensus of what can be done, how to do it, such that it is possible to scale up for mandate, for regulatory purpose, it took a lot of effort. It took a lot of effort. But we did it, and then it was published in Science, and it is now the background for many documents. For example, the Australian Academy of Science published a report at the end of last year recommending, well, in general, from the scientific perspective, what to do using this paper, and in many other places that paper is used. So that was this, and now we've worked on another next step, and hoping that it will be published on the pathway to clean indoor air, because then we have now the blueprint. That's what you do. Sensors, what to do, and in that paper we've also recommended the values and the justification for this. Because that's the regulatory process, that you cannot just come, I think that would be a good value. You have to have a very good justification for this. And then a process that it can change in the future, like everything changes if there's new scientific knowledge. But then the process, how to do it, we cannot say, we are introducing that standard next week, and of the next month, every building must comply.
No,
that would
there's going to have to be a process put in place.
To be a process. That's so our next paper is that pathway to clean indoor air, and just stages of that process. And the first stage is monitoring. Monitoring is monitoring. If you don't monitor, you don't know, you cannot control it. And
I'm assuming that these sort of monitors that people can get will speak into their BMS systems and.
Well, that's the idea. That's the idea. But it is not even the first step that you have to connect it to the BMS, because it is far more complex, and you guys probably understand this more than I do. BMS in buildings like these big buildings, is not controlled by lay people, it's not controlled by facilities management, it's usually controlled by companies hired for this. So it's system, and there are all kinds of issues, security issues and so on. So you cannot say, let's get this monitor, let's connect it.
Yes.
So it's far more complicated, and first of all, no BMS system would know what to do with the data from sensors. So you have to build some other elements of the system which understand this data and tells BMS what to do with this. So this is not even the first step of the process. The first step, start monitoring.
Just get the monitor.
Get the monitor, because once you start monitoring, you start seeing the problem. You may already immediately start sort of seeing what can be simply done. But with this, you will learn what the next steps of how to then control it properly through the BMS.
So an FM or a building manager can be monitoring. They might have the monitors and they'll see the number is 780. They might say it's 800 and something. They might say it's 900 something. When we do slip testing for floors, for example, and a lot of other companies will give them a facility manager a report with the numbers on it, and the facility manager doesn't know what they're reading. How can a facility manager understand what a 780 or an 800 means to them?
They are not qualified for this. We should even ask them for doing this. That's what I said. They don't control the BMS. So there are experts for this.
Yeah.
So when you want to do anything at scale with a building, you are not starting, whether it's facilities management, whether it's management or whoever, you're not starting, okay, how to do it. You call a company which does this.
Yeah.
And that's the same, it is with this. There are experts.
Yes.
That expertise is still, well, I wouldn't say relatively small. There are companies doing this, but it's not that there are companies everywhere because this hasn't been yet done at scale. But that expertise is there. So then you call company, okay, well, first of all, install this. Who would know? Facilities management wouldn't know even how to install. Put it here, put it there, where to put it.
Where's the best place?
Where's the best place to put it? That's right, yeah. So you call a company which will measure and you give an objective. You need to understand what are the concentrations, how would they comply with the proposed indoor air quality standards. The company will do this, and they would look in at the trends, what's happening. They can immediately say, well, you don't have a problem. That's in many places. And I mentioned to you the P block, one of the buildings at Acuity. There's no problem at all. So, and I'm talking about ventilation in terms of CO2 measurements. But in other places there is. Why is there? Well, maybe as simple as possible, something's blocked there. There are also cases like this. So you check this. So there are lots of things you can do before you install kind of a full-scale smart system. I don't like that term smart, but it's automated system which understands this and controls it.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are the levers that would then get pulled within a building to make changes? So ventilation, filtration. And controlling of sources, because in principle, the first step is to control sources. I mentioned schools. And actually schools is another issue with schools. Because schools in Australia, like in most of the world, they have natural ventilation, window ventilation, which means that if the windows are closed, there's no ventilation. And windows are closed for all kinds of reasons, cold, hot, noisy, and for silly reasons. They are very good surfaces for hanging art, for example.
Yes.
And that's what. So windows are closed. There is no ventilation. But the source. If the source is controllable, like this stub dust from the kids bringing this. Well, find a ways of doing this. Maybe they can change shoes. Maybe there's something, because there's no point putting full management of what's in the air if you can control emissions. The same goes for any other emissions, like for example this cooking situation. So, is the purpose of monitoring then finding out that the concentration from the stoves are very high? No, you need to use a range hood. Getting the source control, if possible, that's the first step. Controlling as source is of course more difficult. Yes, because we wouldn't like to be controlled, and we don't know sometimes whether we need to be controlled. We could be infectious without asymptotic, without having symptoms, and then you have a little sore throat. Well, you're staying at home, or maybe you are going to work. What are you doing? You're infectious or not? So this is very complicated situations, and I can't quite see society wearing masks and any thought that one can be infected. So that source is more difficult to control. So the first is control the source if you can control the source. But then if you've done everything, so then you see what else you can do, and in particular where it's coming from. Whether it's coming from here or it's coming from outdoor, and what is the reason for it coming from outdoor. If the particles were filtration, that filtration can take you only that far if the concentration is high. Well, air recirculation. So looking at these options, but this is not rocket science really. Once you understand this and you have information and data, you can quite clearly see what to do.
And I would say that it's really important, as FMs are guardians of the facilities that they manage, and they're guardians of the people that are coming in and out of their facilities. And so you've mentioned schools, there's a wide array of different types of facilities. There's hospitals and healthcare centres, which I'm assuming this would be really, really important for. But then there's also the high-rise office towers, and they're just as important because no one wants to go to work just to get sick. So, that infection control piece is probably one of the best justifications as to why we need to take this seriously, right?
Yeah. Because that's where we get infected, in public spaces.
And I know that it's like, my grandma, for example, hates the idea of going to hospital because she says, if I go to hospital, I'll get sick.
That's very right. There is a very high rate of hospital-acquired infection.
Yeah, and how do you see the healthcare space taking this on board? Are they in Australia as facilities? Are they taking this seriously?
Well, of course, it's right now, since it's not mandated that indoor air quality is monitored.
Yes,
it's not being done. Ventilation system normally in healthcare facilities is better, but better in some special areas. But if you are in the emergency ward, you get in the emergency, is it better or is it just normal? And this is where people come from all kinds of infections waiting to be treated. So there are spaces, everywhere in healthcare, which have to be very, very much better controlled than to much lower level of concentrations than in typical areas.
I also imagine that as this becomes more regulated and mandated, that there'll be things like plants and facilities where there's machinery operating inside, where this will be harder to get on top of. Are there considerations for how the mandate, like how you're proposing mandate, should be rolled out for different types of facilities?
Well, this mandating in terms of the concentration levels. We didn't, in that paper, we didn't propose different concentration levels, not to really complicate this.
Yes.
But also, it's a very good question, is on what basis that 800 comes.
Yeah.
Because since, as I said, WHO doesn't have, this is not a health pollutant as such, these concentrations. WHO doesn't have health guidelines for CO2. And normally health guidelines are the basis for setting national standards. And those health guidelines developed by the WHO is on a whole suite of studies, exposure response, and so on. So what to base this on? This is because it's not a health as such pollutant, it is infection risk. But we have risk infection models, and based on them, using those models, we can predict a situation that, let's say, someone is infected with this type of virus, and the infectivity of this virus is this and this. So how much a person sharing the space would have to inhale to get infected? And this information also exists, even so it's much more difficult, but still. So if we know this, I'm inhaling this, we are spending here an hour, the concentration builds up to this because of the airflow and so on. So anybody sharing that space within that time of an hour infects this many virions, which is enough to get infected. So models like this exist. And based on a model like this, we took a scenario of a classroom of 25 students, one infected, spending 1 hour, one lesson. And as the virus, we used COVID-19, because this is the most known infectious virus existing right now. Much more than anything, much more than influenza and so on. So based on that scenario, we calculated 800 and ventilation rate of 14 liters per second per person.
Okay.
So that's the basis for this.
That's why.
But if we took a different scenario, that scenario could be, I don't know, doctor's surgery, and a patient spending or whatever time, and next patient coming, and the room much smaller, because we also, for that scenario, school scenario, we took a standard size of a classroom.
Yeah.
If we took a much smaller, like often the size, so the value could be different. So of course, this is an open for further decisions, for decision makers, how protective they can go or want to go, or can I wouldn't say afford to go in terms of the building infrastructure, but cost comes into this as well.
Yeah. You mentioned before we started recording that at QUT you've got a building that is, I'm going to say this wrong, going to be the first in the world. How do I finish that sentence?
To meet this proposed indoor air quality standard.
So what steps did you guys take to get it to meet those the proposed standards?
We are in the process of doing this. The way it is started, I was contacted by a philanthropist who said, well, we want to help doing something good for indoor air quality. And that's something which is for general good, so it's just not just for whatever, a PhD student at the university, but general good, something which is publicly available. And so I asked what size of the project are we talking about? Because we now have quite a lot of research money, and we have lots of projects. So when I realized that we are not talking about sort of little project doing something, but really big project, I was thinking, what would be something we haven't done yet to really progress this area? And then it came across my mind that demonstrating that it is possible to meet this proposed indoor air quality standard. So I was then thinking, going home, I remember thinking, which building we would use for this, because that had to be a real building.
Yes.
I was thinking about something small, because I also envisaged that some retrofitting will be necessary, which is very costly. But then it occurred to me that this building, P Block, Science and Engineering building, which is visible from the freeway here, in which our offices are and in which our lab is, and where we've done lots of measurements, because once we moved there, which is now 3 years ago, that's what we were doing, measuring everywhere in every possible space and complaining if there were issues. So we know that in open spaces, particularly large open spaces, air quality is already meeting very easily the standard. So I thought that this was possible within the budget. It was possible to do it. So then we went to the university and said, well, here we are, we have the funding for this, but we may need some more, because there are some areas we already knew would require retrofitting.
Yeah.
Would the university be happy with this? And 10 minutes later, we came here with the answer, yes, go ahead with this.
Fantastic.
That's how good.
Yeah.
So we are now in the process. So again, it's a process. The project officially started at the end of last year. We have a launch of this project. So we've shortlisted, out of many possible monitors, low-cost monitors, we shortlisted 4, and we subjected them to very extensive testing, which is finished. We are now finishing data analysis. We also asked the companies to provide us quote for running this. There was a decision. Of course, we could, as a research team, we could have done this. We could have put them on monitor. But this is not a model for the world. Because if we have done like this, other buildings, even other university building couldn't have gone.
No.
So it had to be done such that anybody could then follow this. So if it's like this, it has to be a company providing monitors and company operating those monitors. So then the next step is what are the conditions the company offers. If the company is too expensive in running this, so it could be cheap to buy them, but then the cost of running, so the university would say, when they take over, when the project finishes, we are not paying this cost. So all those things have to be taken into account in choosing the candidate. as I said, all this will be publicly available, any reason for the decision. And so we are hoping next week or the week after, we are hoping to make decision which of the 4 will be selected. Yeah. And then once this happens, so the next stage is the placing them. Again, the question was, how are we doing this? Ideally, like this tent-along, well, attach it to the wall or something like this is the cheapest, but it has battery. So we are talking about over 200 spaces, 1 monitor per space. How many batteries? Is this sustainable? Not really. No. And in addition to this, how much work it's in checking these batteries, whether the battery is so that's not really a solution. So, but on the other hand, wiring them, it is also a problem.
Yes.
Cost. So in a new building, it wouldn't be a problem because in a new building you can build them in. Not a problem.
Yeah.
It's basically almost no cost additional to that. So eventually we realized that because of we are talking about mixing ventilation, which is the main type of ventilation. In general, air is mixed. So in general, it doesn't matter whether you plug it there or you plug it there. So to a large extent, we will try to use the existing power points. Okay. So this will lower the cost. So that will be how they will operate in terms of electricity. But they will communicate via Wi-Fi with the QT system. So, which of course is another step because for considering safety and so on, so it also is a protocol, but that's how it is going to be. So that's where we are.
And who will then be managing that system?
So
once the data comes out?
The idea is that the managing of the system, of the sensors operating, it will be the company.
Yeah.
Of course, we'll be working with the company, but it's the company such that we could say, well, you don't need a researcher, it's a company.
Yes.
So other company can do it. But this is, in my view, this is the easiest part of the process. The easiest because we've worked with sensors for years now. So we have this expert. That's easy. The more complex process is the taking data from this and analyzing the data and telling the building management system what to do.
Yes.
That's this. And in particular, in situation that indoor-outdoor for PM2.5, that's one aspect. But the other aspect is calibration. Every instrument given numerical data must be calibrated. How do you calibrate these hundreds of monitors in the building such that it is traceable? So we've also came up with a system how it can be done automatically. So some small numbers of them will have to be physically calibrated against standard instruments, but the rest will be calibrated through this data system, and then signaled if there's a problem. So that's another issue how we can resolve. So it means that we need to build that data platform, AI platform or optimization platform, which deals with all of this data and tells the building management system what to do.
And then hopefully the building management system can respond automatically rather than a building manager or a facility manager having to do that reactively.
Yeah, that's right. So this is another part, that some parts of the building, some space in the buildings or some areas in the buildings will have to be retrofitted because right now they are not designed for responding.
Yes. And what would responding look like?
Responding well.
Increasing filter.
Increasing ventilation, increasing fresh air, ventilation versus recirculation versus fresh air, and filtration.
Yes.
Filtration is another problem. And doing this in consideration with two other factors. Comfort, because you cannot say, okay, we don't care about any area. Bring this
7 degrees.
That's right, yeah. This, so it's one, and energy as well. So this has to be. Some worry that this would cost more energy, but we are saying that in fact it will probably cost less energy, because the way buildings operate right now, they are set for the set conditions without considering what's really happening in the building. And in particular, when we are talking about office buildings, this kind of facilities, now with people working from home, how many spaces are empty?
I was walking through an office yesterday and a whole level was empty. The lights were on, air was going.
That's exactly right. So everything operates like the building was full of people for the number design, but it's empty.
Yeah.
So of course, some level of ventilation must be all the time provided, but you don't need that much. And if the building knows based on the measurement on what is the situation with the occupancy, it can then control this and in fact use less energy.
That's so fascinating.
So
where do you see, in wrapping up, so where do you see this heading for the facilities commercially in Australia? Where do you see the next 10 years?
Well, some time ago I was saying that, this is all simple because the buildings, what's the complexity of the buildings?
Yeah.
And I was comparing this to thinking about autonomous cars. Because that's, for us, it's still a bit of science fiction. It's not that science fiction because modern cars, even here, they are kind of going this way. But it was that moment last year, or 2 years ago in San Francisco, and I'm looking at the street and there's a car going with something kind of strange on the roof.
The Waymo cars,
And I asked my colleague, what is this? Oh, it's an autonomous car.
Yeah.
You can hire it and it'll take you around. Yeah, so something which was like kind of a science fiction, it's really there.
It's reality.
Now, it's really, but now think how much data this car must collect and very quickly process to safely operate, and it does it. So from that point of view, I was saying that it's simpler for the building, but because it doesn't move. So it can't run over something. On the other hand, building has lots of people and people have different needs and so on. So there's another complexity than that. But still, with the tools we have now for monitoring, for optimization, for data analysis and so on.
For automation, for everything.
Automation, we can do it already very easily. So in 10 years' time, I think, people will not be surprised with a building autonomously operating like they are not surprised with autonomous cars.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on and talking about this. I think it's something that is becoming more and more prevalent, something that facility managers will need to be leaning in and listening to all the more, especially as potential standards get put in place. So thank you so much for your time.
Very well.
Thank you.